As we know, it's the beginning of the new league year, which means all the moves, trades, everything have become official starting at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, including the trade of Deebo Samuel. Now, the 49ers are putting out a bunch of farewell stuff. There's some cool highlights and videos and photos of just kind of remembering Deebo Samuel time with the Niners. We already kind of posted our stuff about that, when the trade was announced. But Deebo Samuel posted to his Instagram story individual goodbyes to multiple offensive players on the San Francisco 49ers, including Brock Purdy. To me, the one that stood out the most was the one to Brock Purdy. So, what we're going to do is we're going to go through each individual one, and the last one is Brock, and we'll talk about what he said and why it stood out to me. All right. So, the first one, and this is actually the same order in which he posted. So he posted to Kyle Juszczyk. Let me get my banner out the way. He says, "Love ya, my brother. Appreciate everything." Those two guys had a great relationship. A lot. I know Kyle's loved Deebo Samuel's son, Deebo Jr. and all that stuff. So there's a great relationship there. Uh, Of course, one of his best friends on the team, Brandon Ayuk, says locked in for life. Ain't changed. Ricky Pearsall, one of the developments from last year was these two guys got along really, really well. And I was actually kind of worried about that when Ricky was drafted, just because it felt like Ricky was the Deebo Samuel replacement. So we'll I was expecting like there could be some drama there, but these guys were great friends. He says, "My brother, keep being you. Sky's the limit, slime." And then gets to Jawan Jennings, says, "The biggest slime, go crazy, twin." And then we get Fred Warner, first defensive player, says, "Real deal, steppa, go miss you, brother." And then, of course, Trent Williams, you know where we stand. Him and Trent just felt like, you know, peas in a pod, man. These guys were so cool together. I love watching them. Of course, these are the two guys who brought out the bump box and all that stuff back in 2019. Super Gremlin, all it might have even been before that. Actually, it might have been no, I think it's 2019. I can't remember exactly the year that we first saw the boombox come out, but yeah, man. And then we land on Brock Purdy. Check 1 2. I hate this stupid thing. And then we land on Brock Purdy. He tags Brock, throws up the cross finger emojis. I don't know if you guys remember back when Trey Lance did this over a Rand Carthon hiring post, and the whole like internet went crazy because they're like, "Oh my gosh, Trey Lance threw up the cross finger emojis." With Rand Carthon being hired, that must mean he wants to be traded to the Titans. It's just like, oh man, this is what happens when older the older generation tries to interpret emoji language, but it's pretty common when you just say like we're locked in. It's kind of a, you know, we're like this kind of a gesture through the emoji. And he says, "Get what you deserve, family." And so, of course, what that is a that is directly pointed at Brock Purdy's contract negotiation. And, obviously that becomes something of relevancy because Deebo Samuel had one of the more tumultuous contract negotiations in recent memory with the 49ers, scrubbing his, Instagram, doing all that kind of stuff, requesting a trade. doing all that stuff, very public kind of display throughout his whole negotiation. They ultimately got it done, but of course, they have moved on from Deebo Samuel. And so I thought it was interesting see that this was basically a, you know, don't fold, Brock. Don't don't take less than what you are worth and what you deserve. And because again, all of these players have talked about how insanely challenging these contract negotiations are, how stressful it is, how much it wears on their mental health. And again, it's one of the reasons why I'm not a fan of how typically the 49ers do negotiations. I mean, there are variations, like Diamond Lenore, for example. I loved that they got that deal done in season quickly and quietly, early. Like that was great. But of course, over the past, we have just seen how the trend is that these things will drag on into training camp and they will get kind of ugly and, just makes it challenging for everyone involved. So I really don't want to see that happen, with the 49ers and Brock Purdy and their negotiation. And we kind of been talking about this. At least I mentioned something on a live recently that to me, the deadline that makes sense would be after the draft, before mandatory minicamp and OTAs. Um, that's like the first, I think, legitimate chunk of time where I'm assuming a deal is going to get done. Um, and the reason why is because the draft is like an invisible line. That's when people are calling, is this guy available? Is that guy available? We're making this move. Will you want in on this move? So I would expect I'm expecting the 49ers to keep their options open. I mean, you even had Greg Papa go on KMBR, who's regardless of anyone says or thinks, he's very tapped in with what the San Francisco 49ers are doing. And he said, based on this point, um, he expects the 49ers to listen to calls on anyone. And he even mentioned John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan I think the point to emphasize that anyone can be a part of trade talks right now. And I've been saying the guys who are most susceptible to being potentially traded are the guys who are in contract negotiations. So doesn't mean that's going to happen. It's just, again, alert, alert, alert. We're on alert. We got alerted since the Mike Silver article. Everything's kind of followed suit of what Mike kind of alluded to, kind of an organizational shift in philosophy, potential power dynamic changes at the top of the organization. Um, so it presents a bit of an unknown. So that's why for me, we got to get through the draft. If we get through the draft and Kittle and Brock are still on the team, I expect them to stay on the team. But until then, I do believe anything can happen. It's not mean I'm expecting it to happen. I just recognize that there are multiple ranges of outcomes, and that is a range of outcome. Doesn't mean it's a high probability outcome, but it is a reality. So again, if there's anything we've learned about contract negotiations with the 49ers, they're tense. They're like a roller coaster ride. You never know which way it's going to turn. So we'll see. This is one of the biggest negotiations in franchise history in the last 20 years with Brock Purdy. So we'll see how it goes. But what did you think about what Deebo had to say? No George Kittle. I found that interesting. Let me double check to see that it wasn't a late addition. Late edition George Kittle. No George Kittle. I thought they were. good buddies. Not to say that they're not good buddies. But yeah, no George Kittle post. But let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more updates.